Hey everybody, Hoople's Cat. Anyway, the pandemic's still raging in Toronto, so I started to talk about a few basic things that you'll see me doing in some of the scenarios. Medications. One of the easiest and simplest medications you can get is acetaminophen, otherwise known as Tylenol. Aspirin's a good one, but aspirin will go off. The aspirin smells of vinegar, it's poisonous, don't use it. Ibuprofen has some issues. Advil, I don't actually recommend them for this type of thing. But a low dose Tylenol given frequently will help with any fever the patient may have, including muscle aches, which is quite common. The other thing you might want to consider, as long as it's not cholera, because you'll kill them, is anti-diarrheal medications. Diarrhea, when you're trying to quarantine somebody, is a major problem. Without getting too graphic with that, you have to figure out that wherever you've got the patient, you can actually clean them if they lose control of their bowels, without contaminating yourself and without contaminating their environment. That's going to be a really difficult one, and again, once the lovely Leslie is convinced to do it, I'll actually show you how we would wash somebody in bed and stuff like that if they've got diarrhea and they're infected. Another thing you can easily buy, and these are obviously hospital ones, are baby wipes. The ability to actually wash somebody who you feel is contaminated and just dispose of the cleaner is a great idea. Now, the other thing you can do is get cotton squares from old clothing that you've cut up, which you can use as toilet paper in general grid down. But in the specific for pandemic, you can actually use them as washcloths and then put them into high concentrated bleach for about 24 hours and then air dry them somewhere away from the home, and you can reuse them. It's not great to reuse stuff in a pandemic, but in the real world, if you have people who are sick and if the pandemic is going on for 6 months and you can't no longer get stuff available for Amazon Prime, you want to figure out how you're going to do it. Like having 4 or 5 of these is not really going to help you in grid down anyway. Initially it will. You know, I have quite a lot of these, so I know I'm not going to run out. But how many wipes do you have, given that even with the big bath wipes, you need 3 or 4 to clean a human being who hasn't had diarrhea? Think on that. Have you actually got plans in place, have you bought supplies that actually aren't going to work very well? Now, as I say, I showed in another video the various types of hand alcohol, foaming and non-foaming agents that you can buy fairly cheaply. I do recommend you have 4 or 5 to 6 of them available and ready to go. They're a great fire starter, and in grid down, the ability to wash your hands and clean your hands is absolutely important and an ongoing way. And the other thing is specific for pandemics. To be able to quickly wash your hands without using soap and water is a very useful thing to be able to do. That said, and I think I do want to point this out, you should have large quantities of soap. I got this Dove sensitive skin. My hands aren't that sensitive, but if I'm washing my hands 20 to 40 to 50 times a day, every time you go in the room where the person's sick, every time you come out of the room, and when you're in the room as well, you should be able to wash your hands. So if you go in only 10 times during a 24-hour period to see them, you have to wash your hands at least 20 times. And by washing your hands, that's a whole skill in of itself, which will be demonstrated in a scenario video. The other medication I would recommend, if you've got access to it, if you know anybody who's asthmatic, see if you can get some salbutamol, otherwise known as Ventolin. You need a doctor's prescription for this, so I'm not recommending you get it, but if you have access to it, you should know how to use it, and don't use it through the mask. But this will actually help you out a lot if a person is starting to have respiratory issues. It will maybe help them, maybe it won't help them. If you are asthmatic, you'll know that there's different types of Ventolin. Not Ventolin, there's various types of inhaler. If you have the blue one, the Ventolin, and you have a brown one, always use the blue one first and then the brown one. The brown ones tend to be, there are several types of them, but they tend to actually have the airways opened by this, and then the anti-inflammatory agent in the brown ones is then able to coat the airways that have been opened by this. Put the brown one in first and then open the airways, you're getting a limited effect from the brown one. So I hope that helps, and I won't be doing most of these wearing a mask, but I just wanted to show you if you don't actually work in an area where you use a mask a lot, you really need to focus on that. You maybe want to spend 4 or 5 hours one day just wearing the same mask repeatedly. The mask should not be fogging your glasses because there should be no air coming out here, and it should be fairly sealed, and it should be uncomfortable. The mask, when it's on, will be over both above and below the ear, and will actually you will feel the mask pressing on your nose, etc. Now, one of the things I didn't mention in the video with the gear is that the masks that you can buy that have a valve here, do not buy them. Everything I read at the time of SARS and since then tells me one thing: they are compromised very, very easily. You need a full seal mask. Now you're going to use face shields, etc., etc. That's something you might want to think about depending on the type of virus. Viruses will be airborne or not. If it's airborne, to actually prevent yourself getting it, unless you live in the middle of nowhere and shoot people if they come close to you, it's going to be very, very difficult. So the series is going to evolve, and it will show the outbreak, it will show the spread of the outbreak, it will show what's happening in the home because of the collapse of society. It will talk about what the governments are going to do, are actually physically planning to do, to maintain a semblance of society during a pandemic that is killing loads of people. And what you should be doing, what you can do, what you can't do to prevent death to yourself and to your loved ones in a pandemic. Anyway, the series is going to evolve, and it's going to go for a few weeks. In fact, the way I thought about this initially was I was going to just do boom, 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 and do a series of them. I don't think I will. I think I'm actually going to evolve this over a pandemic. The pandemic is breaking out now in Mexico City. I'm currently totally unaware of it. So yeah, let's stay safe and have some fun. Au revoir. Let's hope it doesn't happen.